You're being dramatic, Janelle. Damon needs this more than you, my mother snapped, holding the deed in her hand like it was hers to give away. We were in the middle of the housewarming party. Our housewarming party. At least, that's what I thought it was. She waved the crisp document in front of me as if that explained everything. He has a family now. A wife? A baby? What do you have? Just yourself? Her words cut through the noise of conversation and music like a glass shattering on tile. I stood frozen in the kitchen of the house I had poured my soul and my life savings into. It was supposed to be a joyful day, a fresh start. A chance to finally be rooted somewhere after 10 years of double shifts at the hospital and saving every spare dollar I could. My name is Janelle Harper, and I'm 34 years old. I'm a nurse at Asheville Memorial, and until about 20 minutes ago, I thought I was finally building something of my own. Instead, I found myself watching my stepbrother Damon, my mom's favorite child from her second marriage, grin smugly while balancing a glass of champagne in one hand and rubbing his wife's pregnant belly with the other. He never contributed a cent to our parents. He never even held a job for more than 6 months. He found himself in a trail of failed businesses and startup scams. But now, somehow, he was being handed the very house I had helped buy. I blinked, stunned, as my stepfather Frank chimed in, not even bothering to look me in the eye. We've already filed the paperwork, Janelle. The house is in Damon's name now. You should be proud. You're helping your brother start his life. My breath caught in my throat. This house, a colonial-style fixer-upper on Hawthorne Lane, was my dream. I'd spent my weekends painting the porch, planting tulips, and making this place feel like home. I pictured holidays here, late mornings with coffee, maybe even, someday, hosting my own baby shower. Instead, it was being handed off like a wedding gift. I scanned the room. Guests sipped wine and nibbled canapes in the dining room. My mom's church friends laughed near the fireplace. My cousin Brittany raised an eyebrow at me, then quickly looked away. Only 2 people met my gaze. My Aunt Delia, who'd always quietly warned me that my mother had a blind spot where Damon was concerned, gave me a sympathetic shake of the head. And my best friend Mara, who had been with me through every soul-crushing night shift and every missed vacation, looked like she was about to hurl her wine glass across the room. "I'm sorry." "What?" I managed to ask, my voice dry, trembling. My mom pursed her lips like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "You're a nurse, honey. You'll make that money back in a few years. Damon needs this more. He's starting a family." I almost laughed. It sounded so absurd. I had given them $160,000, nearly every cent I'd saved over the last decade, to help them buy this house. Their own was about to be foreclosed on. I didn't hesitate. I'd thought, naively, that it would bring us closer, that they'd finally see me as someone worth trusting, worth prioritizing. I was wrong. "I worked for that money," I whispered. "We agreed the house would be in my name. I was the one who signed." "We made other arrangements," Frank interrupted. "Your name was on the early drafts, but Damon's going to be the one raising kids here. It just made more sense." I looked to Damon. He smirked and raised his glass toward me. "Thanks, sis. I promise I'll keep the kitchen clean." My vision blurred. All around me were reminders of my effort. The granite countertops I'd fought to get within budget, the lavender-scented candles Mara and I had picked out, the welcome mat that read, "Home, finally." I felt sick. This wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. And it wasn't impulsive. This was planned. I excused myself, slipping quietly out of the room. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened like I was back in the ICU, watching a patient crash and having no way to stop it. Mara followed me out to the back porch, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" "No," I whispered. "I think they stole my house." She pulled out her phone. You need to call Caleb. Your brother? He's a real estate attorney, he'll know what to do. Before I could respond, Damon's voice echoed through the open window. We'll probably tear down that weird sunroom, he was saying. Open up the floor plan. Janelle had no sense of space. He laughed. His wife laughed. My mother laughed. I turned, walked back into the kitchen, and spotted the folder my mom always used for important paperwork, wedged atop the refrigerator, just barely out of sight. I grabbed it. Inside were the documents from our original meeting with the realtor, a signed agreement stating the down payment was mine and the title would be in my name. Behind it, a folded letter dated 2 weeks ago from their attorney. It was a warning. Transferring property without consent of the financial contributor may constitute fraud, it read. I stood there, stunned, holding evidence that they not only betrayed me, they knew what they were doing was wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Stop sulking outside, come back in and be happy for your brother. That was the moment something in me shifted. I wasn't just going to walk away from this, I was going to fight. I texted Mara's brother. Hi Caleb, I need legal help. Can you meet tomorrow? His reply came in under a minute. Rachel told me what happened. Come to my office at 9 a.m., bring everything you have. I stared down at the house I thought would be mine. And then I walked back into that party with a new plan. Caleb's office sat on the 3rd floor of a brick building tucked between a coffee shop and an insurance agency just off Biltmore Avenue. It was quiet when I arrived at 8:55 a.m., except for the faint sound of jazz filtering through the waiting room speakers. I clutched the folder to my chest like it was a lifeline. Miss Harper? A young receptionist asked, peeking her head around the corner. You can go on in. He's expecting you. Caleb Martin stood to greet me. He looked almost exactly like Mara. Same sharp green eyes, same no-nonsense expression. I'm glad you came, he said, offering me a seat across from his cluttered desk. Mara told me the short version, but I want to hear it from you. I exhaled and began to speak, slowly, carefully, trying not to let the emotion get in the way. I told him about the housewarming party, the deed transfer, my $160,000 down payment, the letter from their attorney warning of fraud. I handed over every document, including bank transfers, contracts, and even screenshots of texts with my mom promising the house would be in my name. Caleb didn't interrupt once. He nodded occasionally, scribbled a few notes, and then flipped through the papers. When I finally finished, he leaned back and folded his hands. Well, he said, they screwed up. Big time. My chest tightened. You're sure? Absolutely. This wasn't just shady. It's legally problematic. You contributed the down payment, you signed the initial paperwork, and you have multiple confirmations in writing. More importantly, he tapped the letter from their lawyer. They were warned not to do it, and did it anyway. But the deed's already in Damon's name. Which we can challenge, he replied. Under North Carolina law, fraudulent transfers can be reversed. Especially when there's intent to deceive the financial contributor. What they did wasn't just immoral, it might be criminal. Criminal. The word made my stomach flip. I didn't want to send my mom to jail, even after everything. I'm not trying to ruin their lives, I said quickly. I just want what's mine. I understand, Caleb replied gently. But let me ask you something. If you hadn't found that letter, would they have ever told you the truth? Or would you be sitting here 5 years from now still wondering what happened to your house? I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because I already knew. They would have lied and gaslit and painted me as dramatic. They'd done it before. This is your call, Caleb said. I can file an emergency injunction today to prevent them from refinancing, renovating, or selling the house. We'll also begin proceedings to reverse the transfer and press for restitution. That includes your legal fees and possibly damages. I blinked. How much could they owe? Well, best case scenario, you get the house, your money back, and peace of mind. Worst case? He glanced at the papers again. They face felony fraud charges and it goes to court. I swallowed hard. My phone buzzed. Another text from my mother. This is tearing the family apart. Just stop. I looked at Caleb. File it. He nodded, already typing. Let them feel what it's like, I added, to lose something they never earned. That night, after my hospital shift, I lay on my couch, staring at the ceiling. I hadn't told anyone but Mara yet, not even Aunt Delia. I needed time. Time to understand what it meant to finally stand up for myself. My mom called 4 times, then Damon. Then a message popped up. Damon. What the hell did you just do? I silenced the phone and smiled for the first time in days. Let them panic. Tomorrow, they'd get the paperwork. By mid-morning the next day, all hell had broken loose. Caleb called to confirm the injunction was granted. The court issued a temporary freeze on the property, blocking Damon or my parents from touching it. No renovations, no refinancing, no sale. They'll get the official notice this afternoon, he said. Expect drama. He wasn't wrong. By noon, Mara texted me. They're outside your building. Your mom looks like she's about to combust. Sure enough, when I peeked through the blinds, I saw my mother pacing in front of the gate while Frank sat in the car, red-faced and silent. Damon paced like a dog on a leash. I stepped outside. You have to stop this, my mom cried. This will destroy our family. I didn't flinch. You didn't care about that when you stole from me. Frank wouldn't meet my eyes. Damon, of course, had no such hesitation. You're overreacting, he snapped. I have a baby on the way. You were just going to live there alone with your weird cats or something. Actually, I said calmly, I was going to build a life. One I paid for. And now? I'm fighting for what's mine. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Would you like to see the letter from your lawyer? I asked. Or maybe the signed agreement with my bank statement stapled to it. They both froze. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice. Janelle, honey, please. We can fix this. There's no need for lawyers. I stepped back. We're past that. Her eyes welled up with tears. So familiar. So rehearsed. Are you really going to let a lawyer ruin your relationship with your family? No, Mom, I replied. You already did that. I turned to go back inside, leaving her speechless. As I walked away, Damon shouted, You'll regret this. I paused, turned slightly, and said, No, you will. The day after the confrontation outside my apartment, I sat at the nurse's station reviewing charts between patient rounds. My shift was only halfway through when Caleb's name lit up on my phone. Janelle, he said without preamble. Frank and Damon's attorney reached out. They want to talk settlement. I blinked. Already? Getting served with legal paperwork tends to have that effect. I stepped into an empty break room to continue the call. Caleb laid it out plainly. If my family reversed the deed, covered my legal expenses, and issued a signed statement admitting the fraudulent transfer, we could avoid dragging this through court. But he warned me, they might try to wriggle out of accountability. They'll want to make it look like a misunderstanding, he said. You'll have to decide. Do you want your house back quietly, or do you want the truth on paper? I didn't hesitate. I want both. That weekend, we met at Caleb's office. I arrived first, dressed in charcoal slacks and a soft blue blouse, intentionally calm, professional. I wanted them to see the woman they underestimated. Mom, Frank, and Damon walked in 15 minutes late. My mother's face was puffy, as if she'd been crying. Frank wore his usual stoic expression, but I noticed how he wouldn't look me in the eye. Damon, as always, wore entitlement like cologne, thick and unmistakable. The opposing attorney greeted Caleb. I stayed silent, watching them squirm. Once seated, Caleb presented the deal. We are prepared to drop all charges, civil and criminal, on 3 conditions, he said. 1. Immediate deed reversal. 2. Full reimbursement of legal fees. 3. A signed notarized statement from all 3 of you acknowledging the fraudulent transfer and Janelle's rightful ownership. My mother's jaw dropped. You want us to put that in writing? You put it in motion, I said coolly. You don't get to sweep this under a rug. Damon scoffed. This is insane. You'd throw your own family under the bus over a house? It's not just a house, I said. It's my life savings, my trust, my future. You tried to steal all of it. There was a long pause. Frank finally muttered, We'll sign. What? Damon's chair scraped loudly against the floor. You're just giving up? Frank shot him a look that shut him up immediately. Their lawyer started drafting the final documents. While we waited, Mom sniffled into a tissue. You're really going through with this, Janelle? After everything we've done for you? I stared at her. You mean raising me with resentment while Damon got everything handed to him? I cooked your meals. I washed your clothes. You forged my name on property papers. I snapped. Let's not pretend this is about casseroles. 2 hours later, all 3 of them signed. My hands didn't shake as I signed my portion. My chest was steady, my heart quiet. But I wasn't finished. As everyone stood to leave, I pulled out another folder from my bag and handed it to Caleb. What's this? My mother asked, already weary. The sale agreement, I said simply. Damon blinked. What are you talking about? I'm selling the house, I said. To a developer. The offer is above market value and includes renovation rights. It'll be turned into boutique rentals. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a stunned fish. You're joking? I gave a small smile. No, you're going to have to find somewhere else to host Thanksgiving. The look on Damon's face was priceless. You're vindictive, he hissed. I'm free, I corrected. 2 weeks later, the sale closed. The proceeds, along with the $50,000 settlement, gave me the financial security I had once dreamed of having in that house. But now I wanted a different future, one with clean boundaries and quiet peace. I found a small white cottage 10 miles outside Asheville, surrounded by willow trees and with a backyard just begging to be turned into a garden. Mara came over the first night I moved in. We unpacked while sipping sweet tea on the porch. You really did it, she said. You burned the whole script they wrote for you. I rewrote it, I replied. That weekend, we painted the walls soft moss green. I planted violets near the mailbox and bought a hammock for the back deck. I stopped answering calls from my mother. My voicemail filled up with messages alternating between guilt and fury. I didn't return a single one. My work life transformed too. No longer burdened by family drama, I applied for, and received, a promotion to team lead in the ICU. The raise was nice, but it was the respect that meant the most. My colleagues started to notice the shift in me. I didn't flinch anymore. I said no to last-minute shift swaps. I advocated for safer nurse-patient ratios. I stopped apologizing for needing rest. One of the new nurses, Tasha, pulled me aside one day after our shift. You don't take crap from anyone, do you? I laughed. Not anymore? That was the moment I realized I'd done more than reclaim my house. I had reclaimed my voice. The closing for the house sale was quiet. Just me, my real estate agent, and a representative from the developer. The buyers didn't even blink at the history behind the property. In their world, it was just a piece of real estate in a growing neighborhood. To me, it was a symbol of everything I survived. When I signed the last document, the agent slid the final copy toward me and said, "Congratulations, Janelle, that's a hefty check." It was more than just money, it was justice, it was freedom. I moved into my new home on a chilly Saturday morning in early spring. The cottage was exactly what I'd dreamed of. White siding, blue shutters, a porch swing, and just enough land in the back to start the garden I'd always talked about. Mara arrived first, arms full of moving boxes and flowers from the farmer's market. "These are to plant outside," she said, placing the violets gently in my hands. "A fresh start deserves blooms." We spent the weekend unpacking, laughing, and painting the living room a warm amber color. I hung the Home Sweet Home mat that had once been a cruel joke on Maple Street right at the front door of my cottage. This time, it felt right. The air smelled different out here, cleaner, freer. No Damon, no manipulation, no guilt, just peace. 3 days after moving in, I got a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was tight with emotion. "I heard you sold the house. Your brother has nowhere to go now. We were counting on that place. Please, Janelle, call me back. We need to talk." I didn't respond. I had nothing left to give. The same woman who'd once waved the deed in my face and told me I had no one was now begging me to fix the mess she helped create. Let her sit with that. I went back to planting my tomatoes. The garden grew quickly. I'd always had a bit of a green thumb, but this was the first time I'd had the space and the peace to truly nurture something. Cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, thyme, lavender, and of course, rows of violets. Every seedling felt like a declaration. I choose myself. Neighbors began to wave more often. One even offered to lend me tools for raised beds. Another dropped off fresh eggs. It wasn't long before I was invited to the community book club. For once, I wasn't the overworked nurse constantly rearranging my life to serve someone else's. I was just Janelle, reader, gardener, woman with boundaries. Work life changed too. My supervisor, noticing the positive shift in me, invited me to join a hospital task force focused on nurse wellness and safety. I accepted, and during our first meeting, I surprised myself by speaking up about toxic expectations. "I used to say yes to every holiday shift, every emergency call," I said, because I thought if I didn't, I wasn't enough. But we need to stop glorifying burnout. Heads nodded. A few days later, a young nurse named Tasha caught me near the break room. "Your story at the meeting, it hit hard," she said. "I'm the only one supporting my family, and sometimes I feel like I'm drowning." "You're not alone," I said, "but you can't save them by losing yourself." She smiled like she'd just been handed permission to breathe. One evening, Mara came over for dinner. We sat on the porch, sipping wine while fireflies blinked around the garden. "You ever think about what they're doing now?" she asked gently. "I try not to," I replied. "But yeah, I know Damon's working retail. Jessica left him after finding out he'd maxed out her credit cards behind her back." "And your mom?" "Still playing the victim, I assume. I heard from Aunt Delia that she's telling people I turned my back on the family for no reason." Mara raised her glass. "To turning your back on toxicity." We clinked glasses. "To boundaries?" I added. I received another letter the next week. From my mother. This time handwritten. It was 5 pages long, detailing everything from her financial struggles to how Damon was still her baby, and how she hoped I could let bygones be bygones. There was no apology. No mention of the theft, the forged documents, the betrayal. Only requests for money. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer I rarely opened, and went outside to water my violets. By midsummer, the garden was flourishing. I had too many tomatoes to eat alone, so I started leaving baskets on neighbors' porches. Some left me baked goods in return. Others just smiled and waved. I was becoming a part of something, not out of obligation, but by choice. A few nurses from work came over for an impromptu cookout one Sunday. We grilled zucchini, swapped stories, and one of them asked to tour my garden. "You ever think about teaching this stuff?" she asked. A garden like this could really help other nurses decompress. It was the first time I'd ever thought of myself as someone others looked up to. I liked it. Toward the end of summer, I spotted a familiar car slowing near my driveway. It was my mother. She didn't get out, just sat there, staring through the windshield. Eventually, she drove off. I didn't wave, didn't text, didn't feel guilty. I simply went back to weeding the herbs. The car visits became more frequent. Every couple of weeks, my mother's sedan would coast slowly past my house, idling near the mailbox as if hoping I'd come outside. But I never did. The Janelle she once guilted, manipulated, and dismissed didn't live here anymore. This new version of me didn't rush toward drama. I stayed rooted in my peace. One Saturday morning, I was kneeling in the garden planting marigolds when a soft voice called out from the gate. It was Jessica, Damon's ex-wife. Her eyes were swollen, but her shoulders squared with determination. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. I stood, brushing soil from my gloves. "Of course." She stepped in, her gaze falling to the flowers. "You've done a lot with the place." I smiled. "It's my therapy." Jessica swallowed. "I thought you should know. Damon took out credit cards in my name. I didn't realize until collectors started calling. I've filed for divorce officially. But I'm scared." I listened quietly, waiting. "You were right," she continued. "About all of it. I thought maybe you'd know a good lawyer?" I didn't hesitate. "I'll text you Caleb's number. He helped me. He'll help you too." Tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you, Janelle." I didn't know who else to ask. "You're not alone," I said gently, "and you don't deserve to carry his mess." She left with a firm handshake and hope in her eyes. I watched her walk away, remembering how that same hope once started with me, on a porch like this, holding paperwork and trembling hands. At the hospital, something had shifted in how people treated me. Supervisors listened more closely when I spoke. My ideas about patient rotation schedules and nurse wellness programs weren't brushed aside. They were implemented. I was no longer the dependable one who'd pick up every extra shift. I was a leader now, the kind others came to for guidance, not just coverage. Tasha, the new nurse I'd mentored, stood out one evening as we cleaned up after a chaotic trauma case. "You changed my life," she said. "Before I met you, I thought being a good daughter meant being a doormat. You showed me it's okay to say no." "It's not just okay," I said. "It's necessary." She smiled. "You should write a book or something." The idea took root. In the evenings after work, I began journaling again, not just about the betrayal, but about boundaries, rebuilding and reclaiming your own narrative after people you love try to write you out of it. It wasn't polished, but it was honest. Raw. I titled it, "The Garden Reclaims Her." Rachel read the first draft. "Janelle, this is powerful," she said over coffee. "This could help so many women." I laughed. "It's just a journal." "No," she said, eyes gleaming. "It's a blueprint for survival." That fall, my life fell into a rhythm I'd once thought impossible. Sunday brunches with Mara and Aunt Delia, book club nights, community volunteering at the shelter downtown. I even started dating again, cautiously, without pressure. I met a gentle-hearted landscape designer named Evan at a local nursery. We bonded over compost and coffee. He was kind. He never interrupted me, never made me feel like I had to shrink. One evening, while helping me build new raised garden beds, he looked up and said, "You're different from anyone I've ever met." I raised an eyebrow. "In a good way?" He grinned. "In a strong way." I didn't blush. I beamed. Letters from my mother became less frequent. When they arrived, they carried a different tone, less manipulation, more pleading. In one, she wrote, "We're losing the rental house. Damon hasn't worked in months. Frank is struggling. I know you're doing well. I know you could help. Please don't abandon us completely." I stared at the paper a long time. Then I shredded it and returned to pruning my violets. Jessica called a few weeks later. She was settling into a new apartment with her baby and had started a remote marketing job. Caleb had helped her negotiate the debt Damon left behind. "You gave me the courage," she said. "I thought I was stuck forever. But seeing you walk away, it made me believe I could too." I thanked her, but what stuck with me most was what she said next. "I didn't think women like us got to win. But we do." At work, the hospital invited me to speak at a regional conference on nurse retention and emotional burnout. I stood on stage, palms slightly sweating, and looked at the crowd of medical professionals. Many looked tired. Some looked broken. "I used to believe being a nurse meant sacrificing everything," I began. "Time, energy, family, myself. I thought if I said no, I was selfish. I thought if I spoke up, I was ungrateful. But it wasn't until my family tried to take everything I had that I learned the truth. Losing yourself isn't noble. It's neglect." A quiet hush fell over the room. I lost $190,000, but I gained something far more valuable, my dignity. Applause broke out. Not polite, not passive, powerful, raw, healing. When I got home that night, I walked through the garden under the stars. My violets glowed under the moonlight. Tomatoes were nearly done for the season, but my rosemary bush was thriving. This garden wasn't just a hobby, it was a monument. Every bloom, every root, every bit of composted pain turned into something living. A year after I walked out of that stolen house, I stood barefoot in the garden I had built with my own hands. Violets lined the pathway. Basil and thyme filled the air with soft, earthy sweetness. My hands were dirty, my heart full. Life hadn't just moved on, it had blossomed. And so had I. The peace didn't come all at once. Even now I still get texts, from my mother, from extended family who believe every story she spins. Sometimes they say I'm cold, that I should forgive and forget. But here's what I've learned. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing not to carry their shame anymore. It's setting it down, like a heavy stone, and deciding you don't owe your pain to anyone who caused it. Mara once said that I looked 10 years younger now. She was only half joking. The stress I carried for so long, the constant pressure to please, to fix, to be the good daughter, it showed in every muscle, every line on my face. But since choosing myself, I breathe easier. I smile more. And I no longer flinch when my phone lights up with a message from someone I used to owe everything to. Because now, I owe myself. Evan and I kept seeing each other, slowly, intentionally. He never asked me about my past unless I offered it. And when I did, he never judged. One night after dinner, as we sipped wine by the fire pit, he said, "You know, your garden's kind of famous." I laughed. "What do you mean?" "There's a local blog. Someone wrote about it. Called it a sanctuary of rebirth in a world that rarely offers second chances." He pulled up the article on his phone. It featured photos from a community garden walk I'd agreed to host a few months ago. I'd almost forgotten about it. "They don't even know your full story," he said, "but they feel it. The healing. The strength." I've thought about that article often. How even without telling them what I survived, people still felt the transformation, because healing changes you in ways that words can't always capture. It radiates from how you walk, how you laugh, how you say no without apologizing. My mother still lives in a small apartment across town with Damon. Jessica got full custody of the baby after the court saw Damon's financial records, and the police report I helped file when she found the forged documents. Last I heard, he's bouncing between jobs again. And you know what? It doesn't concern me anymore. I don't wish them harm. But I don't wish them into my life either. Last month, the hospital promoted me to nursing director. It wasn't just the title, it was the recognition. The acknowledgement that I was more than just a good worker. I was a leader, a healer, and a woman who'd been through fire and come out stronger. They even asked me to mentor incoming staff on boundaries and emotional resilience. I created a short workshop titled Burnout Begins Where Boundaries End. Every time I speak, a part of me remembers the Janelle who cried alone in her car outside that housewarming party, who believed her worth was something others got to define. Now, I rewrite that definition every single day. One quiet Sunday morning, I walked out to the porch with my coffee and spotted a letter in the mailbox. No return address. Handwritten. I knew the handwriting. It was from my mother. I took it inside and sat with it for a long time before opening it. The letter was different this time. No guilt trips, no requests for money. Just words. I'm sorry. I didn't see what I was doing until I lost you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know. I was wrong. About Damon. About the house. About you. You deserved better. I hope you found it. For a long time, I just stared at it. And then I folded it gently, placed it in a small wooden box on my bookshelf, and left it there. Not as a keepsake, but as a tombstone. The end of an old chapter. That afternoon, I invited Rachel, Mara, and Aunt Delia over for a garden lunch. We sat around the table under the string lights I'd strung through the trees, eating tomato basil sandwiches and laughing about the old days. We should do this every month, Delia said, holding her lemonade high like a toast. To roots and wings, Mara added. To boundaries, I said. To Janelle, Rachel finished. The strongest woman I know. I smiled, not because I needed their approval anymore, but because I finally believed it too. The truth is, I didn't just reclaim a house. I reclaimed myself, my time, my dreams, my peace. And every day when I walk through my garden or watch the sun rise over my quiet porch, I'm reminded that the strongest seeds grow in the soil that's been turned, broken, and made new again. I am not the woman who gave away her life savings to be accepted. I am not the sister who stood quietly while her brother took everything. I am not the daughter who needed to be needed in order to be loved. I am Janelle Harper, nurse, gardener, boundary setter, healer. And this life, this calm, joyful, self-built life, it is mine, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.